Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of Cruel and Beautiful, Eye of the Dragon, Rabbit Hole, and King Dio. Please check out my website in anticipation for my upcoming project, Lauren Frey. So, lately I've been reading a lot of Sherlock Holmes. I was legit, at work, just browsing through my Kindle, getting through, 3 or 4 stories. I think I legit got through, all of them, and I'm now on, the 5th in this collection. I got past the 2 novels already, A Sign of Four and A Study in Scarlet. So, now I'm on the short story collection. In other words, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. In other words, the good shit. This is where Holmes really hit his stride, specifically with this story, A Scandal in Bohemia, which I think is a required reading for anyone enthusiastic about Holmes. This is the quintessential Sherlock Holmes story. If, you want to start with any Sherlock Holmes story, it has to be A Scandal in Bohemia. Because, for one thing, this is the one that, this is the story that kind of established Sherlock Holmes as, an icon. The first 2 novels weren't all that successful, but, this story in particular is what really skyrocketed Sherlock Holmes's popularity. And it's, reading it again, over 100 years later, it is really, really easy to see why. The mystery is compelling, the characters are fleshed out and interesting, and the climax is surprising. It's a surprising subversion of what we expect. It is phenomenal just what they do with this. So for those of you who aren't aware, these are short stories, so I think I'll have a bit more of a... No, I'll have little trouble synopsizing them for you. Is that the word, synopsizing? Giving a synopsis of what happens in this one. So Sherlock Holmes and Watson are just chilling in their apartment, just waiting for something to happen, and this man appears, he sends a letter ahead of time, actually, who claims to be a noble from some foreign country, some European nobility. Sherlock Holmes immediately manages to deduce that he's actually the king of Bohemia, which I believe is a fictional country. I don't... Is Bohemia a fictional country? I believe it is. So anyway, this king... is seeking out the help of Sherlock Holmes in the hopes that he will help him recover a particular object of interest, something that incriminates him for doing something scandalous. Specifically, a photograph of him and a young woman, Irene Adler, a woman that he had an affair with, who has left him high and dry, and holds evidence of their romance or what have you. With the king being married, he desperately married soon. He desperately does not want that photo to get out. So Sherlock Holmes is contracted to get this photo from Irene Adler. So essentially what follows is just a little bit of investigation work, a little bit of general bit of trickery, a general bit of manipulation, of taking action, of coming up with an operation, a kind of heist, essentially. It's kind of like a little heist movie. Surprisingly exciting, surprisingly good plan from Sherlock Holmes, and they managed to discern the location of the photo, only to return to retrieve it to find that Irene Adler has already fled the country with the photo in tow. Essentially, what happens is that Sherlock Holmes is presented to us as this faultless detective, someone with numerous cases under his belt. He's very, very accomplished in his field, very, very successful with his own unique methodology and ability to go through crimes, and he is outwitted by a woman, a commoner, Irene Adler. This was a huge deal back when this first came out, because Irene is not a... The story is a major subversion of what you would expect to see, what you would have expected to see at this time. Irene Adler has managed to outwit the king of Bohemia, who is above her station class-wise, and Sherlock Holmes, who is an intellectual. She managed to sort of outmaneuver them despite her limited means and resources. And for that, Holmes has deep, deep respect for her. Like, in fact, it's kind of implied that he kind of falls in love with her a little bit because he asks to keep her photograph. Well, not really. That is something I wanted to bring up. Actually, is that like Irene Adler is one of the most famous characters in Holmes canon, right? She's the one, partly because this is such a popular story, and probably because it's the first really popular one, is often characterized as being like Holmes' love interest and a major reoccurring character throughout the stories. This is her only appearance. Like, in the official, like, Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes canon, like, this is the only appearance of Irene Adler. And she made quite an impression for someone with, like, such a little presence. And it's really easy to see why. Because Irene Adler has a really surprisingly fleshed out background, an established personality, a keen intelligence that she exemplifies extraordinarily well in spite of her screen time. Holmes comes at her in a disguise. She's aware that he's coming for her, so she's able to see through it because she's an opera singer and has experience with costumes, something that Holmes did not take into account. So she's able to kind of realize that, like, oh yeah, this is happening. I have to take action, and she's able to outmaneuver him, and so she does get the better of him. Like, kind of weirdly, this Sherlock Holmes story, the one that popularized the entire franchise, the entire brand, the legacy that is Sherlock Holmes, is a subversion of the typical formula. Sherlock Holmes does not get the culprit. She does get away with it, even though that, like, there's really nothing wrong with what she's doing, and she promises not to really do anything anyway. It's not that big of a deal. It is a major blow to Holmes's pride. A really interesting sort of again, we've kind of heard. We can kind of infer from what's happened in the past couple of books just how much Sherlock Holmes hates losing, just how much he, like, values his intelligence, and just how much he really loves what he does, and finding the culprit or getting what he's looking for, finding what he's after. He did not get that with Irene Adler. He did not beat her, and that is something that he takes with him throughout the entire rest of the stories. She is mentioned occasionally. Never makes an appearance again. But Irene Adler leaves a very long shadow in her wake. Great character. Very well realized. I'm not a fan of subsequent non-canon works promoting her to a love interest or making her a secret agent or some shit. That's kind of retarded to me. Like, from what I understand, reading this again, is that, like, she is now happily married, like, fucking off with her lawyer husband and, like, having a gay old time. Love. I was surprised with how much I liked the character. The story in general, reading it again, this is a huge step up in quality from the previous two. The previous two books. There are no real problems here. Like, it's exciting from start to finish. It's brief. This is the story, I think, that really successfully 100% nailed their Sherlock Holmes formula.